This is QTV, broadcasting from Banjul, the Gambia. I am Babu Karsi, and a warm welcome to another edition of the Viewpoint, coming to you from the Gambia's finest. Well, on this special edition of the Viewpoint, I have the pleasure to invite a member from the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency and the president of the Gambia Journalists Against Drug Trafficking in the studio to talk about drug and, of course, drug abuse and illicit drugs use in the country. Well, just to remind you that the Gambia joined the rest of the world to commemorate, World Drug Abuse Day, which is the 26th of June every year. But I think it is important as a country that is striving forward to make sure it received zero tolerance or receive zero achievements as far as drug is concerned in the use. And when you say drug, of course, we're talking about the abuse drug that, have been, of course, been on your screens on many occasions, particularly here on QTV, of mostly involving youth, involving in the illegal trading, and buying and selling of drugs. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for coming. Usman, of course, Sediba is the PRO of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the Gambia, and I have also with me Mamadou Kante, the president of the Journalists Fighting Against Drug Trafficking and the illicit drug use. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for honoring the invitation and coming to the Viewpoint.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will definitely start with you, Mr. President. I'm not sure if you guys are doing a lot of work, but let's watch this video together, a promo that they did, as far as journalists that are in the association, trying to fight the use of illicit drugs.
Journalists Against Illicit Drugs Trafficking and Organized Crimes. Drugs trafficking is causing havoc in West Africa, tearing families apart, bringing sufferings to communities and distorting young people who are the cream of society. West Africa has become a major transit route for cocaine trafficking from South America to Europe. According to European law enforcement agents, majority of people arrested for drugs trafficking are mainly from Benin, Cape Verde, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Nigeria, and Mauritania. Drug trafficking has a correlation to many problems in Africa: irregular migration, money laundering, terrorism, and other related crimes. Do you want your life to end like this man? Or do you want the sojourn to tear you apart like this? No! Then let's stop drug trafficking because it is a menace to our society. Our society would be better without drugs trafficking.
Our society will be better without drug trafficking. As I said, that's what you're doing as far as you head the journalism board that is fighting against the use of illicit drug or drug trafficking. I haven't heard much from this association of recent. What have you been doing?
Basically, as you know, this association was just launched in around November or so.
Of 2017?
Last year.
Okay. 2017.
Yeah. So basically, we have been doing a lot. Probably we are not coming here because we have recently having a weekly radio sensitization at DHK. And also we have been involved in other sensitization here and there.
Other sensitization
like going to community, sensitizing them and so on. So also and partnering with the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, wherever they have other issues to campaigns, they invite us, some of our members, to join them in those sensitization. So basically, it's a young association, but then we are doing a lot. We are doing a lot.
Since your formation in end of 2018, name me some of your achievements.
Well, basically a lot. First of all, as I said, we have this weekly radio sensitization. And also we've been partnering, most of these are our partners, the Drug Law Enforcement Agents. And part of that, we also send about 2 of our peoples are part of this a year-long training that is organized by Colombo Drug Plants in collaboration with the Drug Law Enforcement Agents. This is where people have been trained, because in the Gambia we don't have people who helped, people who are involved, who are drug addicts and so on. So this training, we have 2 of our members, myself and another person, going also through this training. It's a year-long training we're doing. So basically, these are some of the things we are doing at the moment. And we have a lot of projects also line up in the pipeline. We discuss in a lot with ECOWAS and so on. There are a lot of project line on the pipeline that's targeting youth and other civil societies in the country.
Fighting against drugs. The most commonly used drugs in the Gambia is marijuana, if you like. And in fact, you know, my other colleagues will say, let's legalize it like other countries. You know, is this the only, you know, drug that is causing all the trouble that we're talking about, or we have seen the entrance of other hard drugs in the country?
Yeah, basically, as you said, you are right. Cannabis is the most abused drug in this country. But having said that, there are still some categories of drugs getting into the country and being used by people in this country. Cannabis is our main problem here. If I want to put it into percentage, probably I will tell you 85% of drugs we're talking about is cannabis related. So actually this is area that we are focusing a lot, and to sensitize people why we should avoid such kind of issues. Because cannabis, imagine, there are a lot of people who are just going to jail because of $1. I think probably Sediba will tell us more about that. You will see just a one joint of bags, probably you buy it $50. When they get you with it, the officers get you with it, you go to jail. And this, the minimum fine they can, if they don't, the minimum fine you can get is about 50,000 or above. Then why young people involve themselves in such kind of thing? So that is why we emphasize more on people to avoid such kind of thing. Cannabis is rampant everywhere, but then the consequences of cannabis is serious. You see it anywhere. Most of the people, even armed robberies, you see most of those petty robberies happening around. In most people, these people are under the influence of cannabis, including accidents also. You see a lot of accidents rampant around. You go everywhere, accidents. All these things, most of them are under the influence of cannabis. So therefore, cannabis is something that we actually emphasizing a lot, because cannabis, imagine, cannabis is just can be grown even behind your backyard. Different from cocaine where you have to put this and that, but cannabis is simple. You can just create something like a bucket like this and put it there at your bathroom, just behind your backyard anyway. So that is why it's rampant in the country.
We'll come to that into detail. Mamadou Kante, the president of the Journalists Against Drug Trafficking and Organized Crimes. Sediba, the PRO of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the Gambia. As I said at the introduction stage, that the Gambia on the 26th joined the rest of the world to commemorate the day of, you know, drug abuse, worldwide World Drug Abuse Day. With the team, exciting enough, we have an international team and a local team. Break it down into us, because the international team is saying health for justice, justice for health, and the local team is saying, you know, what's the name again? Listen First campaign. What's the difference, and why the breakdown of the team?
Thank you very much, Babakar. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for allotting us this opportunity to come out and then talk to the public, talk on the commemoration, but also availing us the opportunity to be able to talk about what we do, and then also to sensitize the public, because it's one of the medium that we can use to be able to make a meaningful impact. Because when you talk about drugs, you talk about issues relating to drugs, drug abuse, illicit drug trafficking, and related crimes. There are two fronts to it. You have what you call the supply suppression, that deals with the interdiction and legal processes. That has to do with the traffickers, the dealers. And we all know the criminal justice system put in place for that is to make sure that they pass through that process from the point of arrest to the point of conviction, where they are taken, like in the Gambia in most instances, to our central prison system. And with that, we know that incarcerating people is not just to keep them away, but to reform, rehabilitate, and reintegrate them back into society. On the other hand, we have what we call drug demand reduction that has to do with prevention, treatment and care, harm reduction, alternative development and alternative livelihood. So when you talk about drug, it's a very complex and challenging phenomenon, and it's not something that is one size fits all. And many people still do not have this understanding that there are two fronts to it. Coming to the theme, yes, the theme for health for justice and justice for health. And we deciding to maintain the Listen First campaign. Now, Listen First is a campaign that was launched by the UNODC in 2016. And this campaign, in full means, listening to children and youth is the first step to help them grow healthy and safe. Now, this campaign, when it was launched, UNODC maintained it for 2017 and 2018 respectively. Because globally, not just the Gambia, when you look at the incidence of this menace, those who are highly affected are the youth. And today, you see children being exposed to all sorts of illicit drugs, behaviors and conduct that promote this. And in most instances, we don't talk to our young ones. We don't talk to our kids. And when we don't talk to them, we don't know their problem. In order for you to solve a problem, you need to do proper diagnosis to identify the problem. And then you come up with solutions to that problem. Otherwise, you give the wrong solution to the right problem or the right solution to the wrong problem. So when this campaign was launched, it has huge impact. Huge impact in the sense that the campaign was able to make meaningful change in many countries and those who engage in evidence-based prevention programs. You know, when we talk about prevention programs, you have to do programs that work, programs that are able to reform and make changes in people's life. So in the Gambia as well, we didn't just sit. We've been doing a lot of programs. We engage schools on weekly basis. We have a television and radio talk shows that we do host, targeting various segments of the society, because it's going to be very difficult for you to reach all your target audience and at the same time. Now, among these programs, we decided to launch what we call drug-free clubs in schools. Because when you talk about children and youths, remember you have in-school and out-of-school youths and children. So, within the school environment, we decided to launch what we call anti-drug clubs within the schools. We do proper assessment, observed within the schools, and then realize that, yes, people have been coming with programs and activities within the schools, but how sustainable are they? How are we able to maintain this to ensure that it continues happening? Because I, as Sediba, if I go to talk to the public, there are certain aspect or maybe certain sector or section of the population that I might not be appealing to, or that I may not reach, or there is a niche there that I may not reach. But sometimes the children can talk to each other. Or you come to school to talk. When you come for sensitization in schools, how many minutes do you have? How many hours do you have? That's just an awareness campaign, but you need to have prevention programs put in place. So after proper assessment, we realized that the Gambia Red Cross Society and the Nova Scotia Gambia Association, commonly known as Peer Health, have coverage in almost network and structures in almost all schools across the country. And the evidence is there to show that what they've been doing works, because most of those that have passed through these structures, hardly you find themselves not only on drugs, but other related activities, hardly do you find them involved in ills or menace or drug abuse or other. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but it's very rare for it to come by. So now, instead of us coming in to set something new, we've had discussions with them. We are working on the concept note and the action plan with them, because we don't just want it to be the same thing. Come, do, and then you go have publicity that you've done this. What impact is it having on the ground? So that's why we want to make sure that we do things proper. First of all, do a proper feasibility study and assess the situation on the ground. Do impact assessment. What is on the ground? What do we want to do? How do we do it? And how do we manage with the mega resource that we have? Because we know it's a public institution. We are all resource constrained. I'll come to that when I want to talk about some of the activities that JTalk is doing, because funding is not coming. When it goes, I'm not saying from the government, but even private participation.
Talking about the issue of schools going down, which I think is important. I was once a peer health member, and I know the influence that they have in schools. Which schools are we talking about here? Because I know it is the length and the breadth of the country, but which schools exactly are we talking about?
Yes, what we may want to do is to pilot it within the Greater Banjul areas, identify schools, and then see how we learn from the lessons from there, and then have it in other schools. Now, coming back to what I was saying earlier on, why the Listen First campaign? Now, we believe that if there is a new team now, that Health for Justice and Justice for Health, that talks about the two sides of the drug crusade, that is supply, suppression, and drug demand reduction. We maintain this theme so that it starts sounding in people's minds still that in as much as we pursue health for justice and justice for health, we should still continue to listen to our children and youth, because at the same time they are the ones who are involved in this. We don't just want them get involved in the problem and then we get them through the criminal justice system. Prevention is said to be better than care. So that's why if you look at it, we maintain the global theme, but at the national level, hence we have programs and strategies that are going to target students, that are targeting children, that are targeting youth. We believe that we must maintain this theme so that it serves as a reminder and then it continues to guide our programs and activities that we do.
A very good initiative, sensitizing, Gambians, particularly at the grassroots level, the school level. But one issue, problem I have is most of these drugs that are, used in this country, we're talking about cannabis, maybe to be specific, are all not grown here. Some of them most of them, I would say, cross the borders and enter the Gambia. What mechanism are you also using to make sure you stop the importation of this into the country?
Yes, when you talk about drugs globally, even the most advanced countries have the most complicated problem when it comes to drugs. You have to remember that it's a daunting challenge. And in Gambia, I'm glad, as you said, most of the drug, it doesn't mean that cannabis is not being grown in the Gambia, whether it's going to be at a smaller scale and in diverse places, right? But we know that majority of the drugs that we have in Gambia when it comes to cannabis come from the southern Senegalese region of Casamas. And in that area, you realize that the borders are very porous. We cannot police the whole border. We cannot be everywhere and at every time. So what do we do?
Why not? Why not?
We don't have the strength. We don't. You see, there is nowhere in the world that you can totally control everywhere and be everywhere. No law enforcement has that coverage anywhere. So as I said, what you can do, you see, in order for you to make a difference, even when you go to developed countries, I used to say this, or any area, citizens are good police officers. People see things and then they report it, because law enforcement cannot be everywhere and at every time. So what can we do? What we can do is, one, on the public front or the public sensitization front, to sensitize and make people aware about things that they have to watch out for, things that they have to be cautious about, and that when they see those, they can they can report that to law enforcement. On the supply suppression front, what we can do and what we are doing is to make sure that we intensify our information collection system, that is our intelligence gathering. And we are doing that. We have our officers that are posted across the country. We have officers that are posted in strategic locations. And they are gathering this intelligence or information, passing it to our intelligence analysis unit. But at the end of the day, we rely a lot on the public for information. And not limited to that, you continue to see the arrests that West Coast region makes on almost weekly basis when we feature cases. This is because they are mounting their ambush, they are going on patrol. But as I said, the responsibility lies a lot on the populace. Because when you talk about this border, if you understand the area there, you know how porous our borders are. And sometimes even some compounds you find from people, the house may be in the Gambia and then the toilet or the kitchen is in Senegal or in Casamas. Yeah. So, and you have to remember the time, because when you talk about this, you understand policing, you have to remember patrolling 24/7, changing shift. Remember, you gathering information on them and they're also gathering information on you. You are gathering intelligence on their activities, they're also gathering on you. But at least we are happy that West Coast region, the command that is there, we commend and appreciate and celebrate what they've been doing. Because some of even the cases you featured, we realized that even in the first quarter of even 2019 alone, they were able to nab more than half a ton. So that shows that they are working. But at the end of the day also, as I said, law enforcement cannot be everywhere and at every time. And this is not just at West Coast region, but it's everywhere. So that's why in most of our public campaigns and awareness creation campaign, what we say to people is that everybody has to be a police, everybody has to be law enforcement, and by how do you do that? You report suspicious activities.
Let me take you back to what you just said before I turn back to Momodu, the issue of napping up drugs. I mean, in 2018, we saw the Drug Law Enforcement Agency burning down almost 2 tons of drugs, and just half of 2019, we've seen already half ton have been nabbed, and most of them, almost half ton, and most of them are from the West Coast region. Can we say 2019 is proving to be a difficult year, and more importation of cannabis is coming into the country?
No, it depends on the information that is at hand, because this is what was nabbed. It also depends and a lot on the programs and activities that have been put in place. As I said, the management is aware about this problem and continues to sit on timely basis to analyze and realize where our problem is and where do we prioritize our resources. Before we battle it here, why can't we stop it before it comes in? And then this has resulted to what? Dedication of more resources, both human and material resource, to the West Coast region. The West Coast region also, the commissioner that is also there, and in fact, West Coast region, because of the priority that we give there, and we know that it's one of the areas where most of this cannabis comes from, what have we done? The Operation Commander's Office is even housed at the West Coast region, so that they continue to strategize and work together. But that's what has been nabbed. What we are also concerned about is what is also getting to the society. How do we build our youth, build their capacity, build their understanding so that they are able to make the right choice? On drugs, you can never say there is not a period that is not challenging. It's a daunting challenge that continues, but it's a challenge that we agree to take up and that we are also going to continue to do without fear or favor or prejudice.
Mr. Kante, since 2015 to date, we've seen statistics that say almost 2,000 people have been nabbed on either trafficking or usage of illicit drugs. Of course, the journalists have a lot to do.
Yeah,
lot to do.
There is a gentleman in their office, one of his deputies, Jobate. I told him once in a program, the drug cartels are always ahead of you. He said, no. So basically, yes, as he said, they are trying very well, but there are constraints, human resources. As he mentioned, you looked at West Coast. You take 100 people today, ask them to get to Casamas, just get them in Brikama. Each of those 100 people will cross to Casamas in a different way, in his own way. So looking at the borders are very porous. So it's a big challenges. That is why I am happy that he mentioned that every citizen should be a policeman. That is to report if they have seen. That is why for us as journalists, we concentrate more on sensitizing the public. Because sometimes some of these things happen because people are not aware why this thing. You realized a few months ago or so, there was a reported case around West Coast, in the Phoenix, where the operative went to arrest somebody and the whole village came out to attack them. I think your vehicle was, in fact, your vehicle was destroyed and so on. So you realized these people don't understand. These agents were not there just because they just want to arrest this person. But this person, if he continue to live in that society, he create more problem for the society, they themselves, than even other people outside. In essence, because if people say today you go out, you make in 200, for example, $5,000, probably young people are also tempted to follow you. Instead of going to school, they're tempted to do what you are doing. You see, at the end of the day, all our young people will drop out of school. They go into a cannabis business. Where are we going as a nation? Where are we going as a country? And as we always mention, Gambia, we have about almost 65% young people. Now, if all our young people are involved in drug-related issues, what will happen to us in the next 10 years?
What is JTOC doing then? I mean, how many members do you have in your association, first of all?
JTOC, basically, we have about 20 at this, 35 people at the moment. 35 people.
All within the Greater Banjul?
Yeah, we have people to outside, but then, as I said, sensitization that we are dealing more of radio as at now.
But not everyone listens to radio.
Yes, not every. That's what I'm saying, because as a young organization, we just started. But this is just a starting point. We are looking forward to meeting people across the country, trekking the length and breadth of this country to sensitize people, not only in radio, but we use, for example, Kanya Leons and other, or other people, other groups, to sensitize them. Because as Saidiba mentioned about with their relationship with the Red Cross and other Nova Scotia and so, JTOC also is looking forward to do the same. There are already existing structures in various regions in this country. We are looking forward to going and meeting these people to work with them in terms of sensitization. And thank God now we have radio stations across the country, community radio stations. One of the projects we are looking into, we discuss on with ECOWAS, is to be able to have a complete programs on community radio stations around the country, across the country.
Every Gambian watch QTV. Come to QTV and then we have a special program.
Yes,
Talk to ECOWAS, come to QTV.
Yes, I think Babuka.
Every Gambian is watching QTV now. There's QTV in every household now.
No, of course.
This is a concern for everyone. Drugs.
I think the TV program has a component on that, right?
Yes.
But then Babukar, where I want to come in on this thing is, you see, when they wanted to launch JTOC, you see, I was talking about funding and support for people who are engaged in creating awareness on drugs. Most of the youth groups that go out there to talk to people on this matter, they write to people for sponsorship. Nobody responds to them. JTOC itself, when it was being launched, the discussion and the idea has been there for a very long time. They had to partner with us so that we are able to give the necessary support that we can give for the realization of that goal. And remember, I believe that you yourself, you are part of JTOC. Because the reason why we supported this idea is not just for the journalists to be going out there to sensitize people, but to stimulate their interest, to be able to do in-depth investigation and analysis. It does not mean that if you are partnering with us, there are things and wrongs that are there about the league, you should not write about it, because we know that we want balanced report. There are issues there. A lot of youths are involved in drugs. If that's, let's say, that becomes an issue. Or cannabis, like what we're just talking about, drugs come in a lot from the Casamas area. I, as a journalist, what can I do? What investigation can I do? What in-depth, not just one day story, but a story that can even take 3 to 6 months. Because the finding of those, we've seen where journalists across the globe have become whistleblowers. Do in-depth research, investigation about it, so that at the end of the day, when the information or the report is out there, people can be aware about it. The impact it's having on the youth. We want to stimulate interest so that people can write about these things. Because remember, as you said, you can never ever reach all your target audience at the same time. Anyone who understands communication, understands marketing knows that. That's why you do STP, segmentation, targeting, and positioning. You go to radio program. Not everybody listening to radio every time. But even the program itself, what kind of program are you running there? So these are all factors in the communication mix that is considered. But one thing that is a far cry that we're talking about is the funding, because all these things that these people want to do require funds. And the league, as a government institution that is subvented, will not be able. You see, people talk about these things. People talk about legalization, people talk about decriminalization and other things. What are they doing? What programs have they organized to reach out to the youth there? Because remember, the crusade on drugs, they tell you, is on 2 fronts. One front is to nab and make them pass through the criminal justice system. The other front talks about what? Prevention. And there are those that are addicted. Taking them to mile 2 is not the solution. They need access to what? Treatment and care. And also, when you are doing the prevention and awareness creation, if I see selling drugs as a means of livelihood. Talking to me alone is not sufficient. There is a need for what? Alternative development, alternative livelihood. We do not hate the youth. We do not hate them. They are our brothers and our sisters. But at the same time, we must do the job that we have been taxed by the Gambian taxpayers to do. So as I was saying, we need people to support them. We need people to, you see, youth groups are there. Almost, I can say, 99% of almost all these youth groups that are going out there to sensitize people have to write to the league to support their programs. Are we saying that our youths are not affected by drugs? We are seeing from naturalistic observation what is happening within our communities. And remember, when you talk about this cannabis, there are studies that have shown that it's a gateway hypothesis for the person to enter into various other forms of drugs. And today, you see youth abusing at a very high scale alcohol, diazepam, and various other combination of drugs that they do not even know the chemical composition of these drugs.
I will come back to that. You know, the issue of the 2000 that we are nabbed from 2015 to date. You know, the youngest was 13 when I saw it. I was like, wow, you know.
Yeah, that is what we are told by the lead official at the celebration. 13 years. As I said, young people are getting into it. Simply as you see elderly people using young people. Now, I was shocked one day when I was discussing with Sediba. He told me he has seen where an old man's almost 60 years using somebody less than 10 years.
To
take drugs somewhere.
Trafficking it from one destination.
Yes.
Okay.
So that child probably don't know what is this. But if that child realize, oh, this is something where I can make money, eventually that child will go into it. So it's very important, all of us, to be involved in sensitizations. As somebody put it, the fight against drug is a bullfight. When bullfight, the grass suffers, even the sands below suffer. Everything around suffers. So there is a need for sensitization. And the most interesting thing, Mr. C, you see people are being convicted. The same people are coming back. Just recently...
that's an issue I wanted to ask, you know.
Yes.
I mean, am I saying, I don't know how to put this, but most of the people, it's just like the anti-crime also. The people, you know, will be caught red-handed, convicted, sentenced. After 6 months, they are back, and then they'll get back into the same business.
Just recently in Brikama, somebody who has been pardoned by President Barrow, just recently, when President Barrow came to power, was convicted again. Now, these times, I think one of the magistrates gave him a fine of $1 million and a mandatory jail terms of, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. Somebody was just pardoned not long ago. You see? So that is why, as I said, I mentioned about this demand reduction issue. How do we make sure that these people are encouraged to know the implication? How can we reduce that thing? So that is why now people are not looking only for the criminal aspect of it, getting people, convicting them. No.
When the team talks about that.
Yes. But people need to be sensitized.
And
why?
parents have a role to play as well.
Yes. Everybody has a role.
Just get it, a parent sending a 10-year-old or 5-year-old to go, you know, transport drugs or buy you like a cannabis.
Because Seriba will say much about that. The agents, they know. You will see people sitting somewhere. They know that probably if I move as an elderly person and move to this place to get something, maybe somebody is watching. But I can just tell a small child, hey, you come. Go to Mr. A and give him this money. He will give you something. Just go there, the child will give, and the child is innocent. Will come and give it to you. You go your way. So that is why all of us, the parents, everybody, need to be involved. People need to be sensitized in that issue. So it's important.
Sediba, the issue of cannabis, you know, we can have the whole show talking about it, but most importantly now also I think Gambians need to know about this. We're not only talking about cannabis nowadays. There are other forms of, in fact, hard drugs, I will put it, that are entering into the country. And you know, the video that you've provided me, you know, the way these drugs like cocaine are produced, oh my God, I don't, you know, believe that I'll be inhaling, you know, fuel that was supposed to be in vehicles, you know, I'll be inhaling it. This is serious, man. And what are you doing to make so, the public knows about this as well, because now we have gone beyond cannabis. It's no more Thai or Yamba. We are going into cocaine now.
Yeah. No, the problems. That video is not specifically Gambia. It's for South America.
Yeah, but they are coming.
That's where I'm coming. I was as I was saying, the thing is, drug issues are complicated, and we have what we call to the NPS, the advent of new psychoactive substances. A very good chemistry student can cook some of these things in his or her backyard. We are seeing
chemistry,
exactly.
Yeah.
We are seeing Nigeria battling with the problem of the abuse of codeine, cough syrup, because it has a sedative component. We've seen countries like Sierra Leone going to Ghana battling with the problem of what we call tramadol, and its abuse. And you're seeing in the Gambia of even the fuel you're talking about. Maybe I can tell you, even in the Gambia, even when we were young, we used to call it gens or so.
Yeah, gens, yeah.
People are in the country that abuses that.
Yeah.
And that's petrol. Because the thing is, when someone is addicted, know that their feelings, the dopamine that is being released, produces such sense of euphoria and highness that the person does not want to miss. And when he misses that, there are withdrawal symptoms that he wants to avoid. And because of that, if the person wants to get high, he can evolve into anything, get anything, rob anybody, kill anybody, in order for him or her to get his or her dose. So in fact, that's why you realize and see the trend today, because it's an interesting trend that we observed, where you arrest somebody, because cocaine is expensive. Remember, a kilo of cocaine, you're talking about 30 to 40,000 euro, high graded. You have crack cocaine, those who cannot afford to buy it. What do? They have to break it down, make a mixture so that these people have it. And those doing this mixture, there is no laboratory standard, there is no standard control, they don't even know the chemical composition.
In the bush, as I saw in the video.
Exactly.
In the bush.
So now you see here, there were instances where we'll see where people will now have this mixture of the cocaine and then have this tramadol and then mix it together. So you can see to it that hence it also has some component that can make people high, and then and this is risky for them. Today you can see there are a lot of energy drinks, some of which have alcoholic component or content in it. Today you see, I used to tell elders or people who say, no, my whole life I've only smoked. Your generation and today is different. That's why we are saying let's listen to children. Whether you will graduate to cocaine or other types of drugs depend on one, your company, your lifestyle, your exposure, and where you expose yourself to the kind of drugs that are there. Today it's very difficult for you to see somebody start at cannabis and then remains there. It depends on the experience. So what we are doing, as we are saying, is to continue on our interdiction and legal processes of gathering information, conducting our raids. But even these raids, it's very difficult. You see people in communities, people are abusing drugs. People are having, you see, let's not only the health area, what are the social issues that are associated to it? The breakdown in families, the lifestyle that they are developing, the social traits. Nobody wants to talk about it. There is a ghetto there, and those who sit in those ghettos are our own brothers and sisters, our own children. You will not talk about it, and if somebody wants to talk about it, the person becomes an enemy. And even if the person who come, if the youth come there and they are not from there, know that they have a host, and wherever that ghetto is, there is a dealer there, and in most instances we know these dealers. So that's why we continue on our sensitization. But what we have been saying, and the bottom line is, we cannot do it alone. If I sit here and tell you that Delhi can do it alone, no, it's not possible, and that's a big lie. Our sister security forces have been very helpful. But on the other hand, we need the public to realize and identify that drug issues are complex and are challenging, and people need to get involved. Or are we afraid of our own children today? You see, I like one statement you said, you see, parental responsibility. Parents all have a duty of care to their children. Human beings are social beings. People using, you go to some areas, you see the father sitting there, the son and his group are over there. This one will rap and pass to the father. Where have we gone to? Ngo muna lamin o mkonde malon lamin von line live o lamin with that. No, these are serious.
Your own son
These are the people that we want to take over the mantle of leadership tomorrow. If you want to see how a nation will be tomorrow, don't look at the present generation. Look at the young one. What we are doing today, others we are doing yesterday. And tomorrow, we have this young one for posterity who will be doing this. How can you tell me and then go and convince a young one, tell him that taking a smoke and putting it into your system is something that heals you? How deceptive is that?
Wow.
Will you go to your kitchen and then bend down on the fire there, or take the smoke and put it in your... No. And when people are addicted to drugs, if you don't do close studies and understand them, you will not know the problem or the component or the aspect of their life that is affecting. So people have to understand this. But you know, as we said, in recovery, they say the first step to recovery is what? Accepting that there is a problem. If we don't accept that it's a problem, everybody will complain. And all the complaint is on what? On the arrest. But what are you doing? You see, that's why I liked a theme that we once used in 2014. And up to today, I maintain that theme. A healthy nation without illicit drug abuse and trafficking begins with me. It's calling on every citizen. You don't talk about it. You don't report it. And you don't want someone to address it. You see them abusing it, you pass it. Officers come to conduct raid, the whole community and the whole society come. And you see, in Bambara, exactly, at Itala, Bambara, this was the thing. But I was very happy. You see, that's why I told you that these things are always on two fronts. When that confrontation happened, we went down there, I went with my team, we sensitized them, we had the whole village, the council of elders. There are a lot of secrets that came out that day. And from that day, I can tell you today, Bambara is one of the best communities in that area when it comes to these issues, because they collectively came together and took a stance that no more. Anyone who does it here, the whole council of elders here will come and then address this. Remember, if head of every household, every community take a stance. I'm not saying we're going to have a problem, but the problem will be reduced.
But obviously, we are running out of time quickly. One area that I wanted to talk about before we leave is the issue of on many occasions I've witnessed or went to cover the issue of arrests that have been made by the drug law enforcement agencies. And one thing that you always cry about is the issue of being armed, because most of these people that you arrest, as you rightly mentioned, in those portfolios, you know, they are armed and ready for anything to make sure that their drugs are being transported. How far have you gone with this?
We are presently working even on a complete overhaul of the Drug Control Act. We are revising the Act. Okay. And these are some of the issues that we've brought up. And even the issues of the small joints to lessen the fines, community services, and other issues. That's why we are capacity. The unit that I had is not just the public affairs or PR unit. It's called Public Affairs Communication and Drug Demand Reduction. This is where we are bringing attention, because we are even working with partners on consultation for rehabilitation facilities and upgrading of the facilities that are here in the country, because there is no specialized treatment facility in this country. Yes. Oh, yes. So we are working on that. We've developed the first ever drug control master plan for this country, which we are selling to partners. And then we believe that if we have some of these things put in place, just like you said, you know, the officers are trained on how to, you know, mitigate some of these situations, it can help. But definitely, we are working on it. We've included this in the Drug Control Act that we are revising. We are taking it up with the authorities, and this is one thing that the Director General has been pushing for. And I can't say this in every forum, that is very much concerned about this. Management is concerned. He knows, and most of them who have had the opportunity to come to our office, you can see that we have been engaging the public. But let me say this, if you will allow me, as my last word, that the bottom line is we cannot do it alone. We cannot be everywhere and at every time. Let parents know that these children who are with them, they have a duty of care. Those who are allowing their own houses to be used to abuse drug and create havoc and mayhem within communities, their days are numbered. And also, let them have conscience to know that they are not doing any good service to their communities. On that note, I will thank you and thank the management of QTV for giving us this opportunity, because it's only through some of these opportunities that we are able to address issues and then gather public support, foster their support in the crusade. Because collectively, when we work together, we can be able to make the Gambia drug-free, and we say no to corruption and yes to investment.
Thank you very much, Sediba. Mr. Kante, quickly, the association is there. What's his name again? Jai Talk. Yeah. A journalist watching right now will want to be part of this association, or maybe a journalist all the way in Basse Community Radio. We want to say, how can I join this crusade? How are you opening your doors to people?
Well, this is open to every journalist, whether you are in print, electronic,
broadcast,
in any aspect of media you are welcome. So it's for journalists. It's not for me, it's not for you, it's not for this or that, but every journalist is welcome.
And it should be a concern for every journalist that is operating within.
Yes, for every, as we mentioned about our constraints, it finances at this moment. We working at, recently we were following a draft case. And with my paper and my editor with Trumpet newspaper, probably some of them who read online have seen, we have been digging into that case because it was since 2015. And you realize we have to make contact. Even Brazil that shipped the container here to the Gambia. We have to find out all those things. So
we will see how that goes. Unfortunately, we have run out of time completely. Thank you so very much, Mr. President Kante, Mamadou Kante, the president of the Journalists Against Illicit Drug Trafficking and Organized Crimes. Mr. Seidiba, of course, Osman Seidiba is the PRO of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Stay away from drugs. I think that's the best word to use from this forum. Parents have a role to play in making sure that we have a Gambia free of drugs and other related crimes. My name is Babu Karsi. Thanks so very much for watching. Good evening.